video to people. Now people can see what I'm talking about. Just a couple of good-looking dudes and
Hanging out.
video, right? No, I'm looking at your IMDb anyway. How you doing, sir? You good?
I'm good, man. Just hanging in there. How about yourself?
I am good. I'm good. And the reason why I bring that up about a couple good looking dudes is you've got some stuff on your IMDb, man. Damn. You're playing the construction working muscle man on these TV shows, huh? Are you doing more movies than TV?
Yeah. That's all smoke and mirrors, man. So trigger the
For me. They put hair in there. I did read on there too. You've been married for forever. Is that right?
Yeah, man. She still hadn't caught on, man. So
Oh snap!
Go down as far as it'll sell.
So you're in Texas, right? No, you're in Atlanta.
Yeah, I'm in Atlanta, Georgia.
Atlanta, Georgia, and you've been in the acting world for how long?
About almost 5 years, 4.5. Something like that. Not very long. I'm still a rookie.
Before that?
Well, I've always had I'm an entrepreneur. I own my own company. But as far as the arts and entertainment, I was a musician. I used to play guitar. I still do play, but I'd play and sing, out at restaurants, bars, things like that. I did that for years.
Really? So, and then one day you just said, hey, I think I want to be an actor?
It kind of happened indirectly. I was actually looking at a guy's house for my business, and we got to talking, and he said he was from Los Angeles, and he used to train at an acting studio called Beverly Hills Playhouse. And I started asking questions, and he could tell that I was interested. So he invited me to his acting class that was close to where I lived at the time. And
really?
I've never looked back, man. Yeah.
Had you had any acting training prior to that? I mean, that's a big step because then you got to go in there and do I'm actually at a point where I'm thinking about doing some improv stuff. But it's like, God, that's such a big step, like you're really exposing yourself. Right now I can hide in this little world where I am and nobody can see me. And that's the beauty of podcasting and radio is, I've got the face for it. That's for sure. But to really put yourself out there, you take acting classes or improv classes or do some stand-up. And that's a huge leap, especially if you're coming from like a construction background. Now you got to like pretty yourself up and, read lines and act. And it's funny because I'm a commercial voiceover person. And, and I've wanted to do it my whole life. And I thought, it's easy. You're just reading lines, you put a little this into it, little that, and it's not, man. Acting is hard.
It's very tough.
And it's more difficult when people can't see you because then you really have to act with just the sounds of your voice.
Yeah.
But how was your first impression of being out there? Like, ta-da, no, man.
Yeah. Well, the fact that it is very difficult is what I liked about it. It's challenging, I've always been, interested in the arts, playing music and giving something to an audience. So that's been kind of my addiction and that's rewarding for me. So when I got into acting, it's like really amplified because now it's a visual art. You've got to be sincere in your emotions and, being a character for that scene or whatever it may be. And this actually was very hard for me. And that's what I liked about it. I mean, some people it comes more natural than others.
Right.
One of them, growing up as a kid, I was raised in a, kind of a whatever, not the best, environment, but I was kind of I was taught not to really show a lot of emotion as a child. And so being an adult, having to learn how to show that and actually convince somebody, it just was, it's hard, man. And it's a never ending process. I still train all the time and I just enjoy it. It's fun to me.
But for a 5-year run, actually, this looks like it's more 4 years. You've got quite a resume built up. I might have to get the name of your agent because somebody's doing something right, man. Holy snot! You've been in some stuff. Now, is a lot of this stuff TV or are you doing movies too?
It's a pretty even mix. I do a good bit of commercials as well, but that's not listed on my IMDb.
Yeah.
It's a different type of resume. But yeah, just whatever comes my way. I've treated the acting thing kind of like a business, and so I trained and got decent enough, and then
So
I started.
how long did you go to training? How long did you go to classes?
Well, the first class that I through the gentleman that was at Beverly Hills Playhouse, um, 2 years, at least 2 years straight, just every week. Did workshops. When somebody would come to town, I would take other workshops at other studios, and I still do that occasionally. I'm
Mhm.
not actively training in a weekly class like I should be, um, but I plan to get back into it a little bit more when maybe this virus thing is over. Things kind of pick back up because they've been very slow in the industry
Yeah.
because productions are just on pause right now.
Yeah,
So
I can
yeah,
do
man, just continue to train because it's a never-ending exercise. You have to constantly stay at it. And every time I've been on set, every time I go to a class, I learn something new, and you just work it. I shot an audition this morning. It was a teleprompter type deal. This was an in-house industrial commercial that I had a audition for, and I've gotten good at reading teleprompters, and I have my own. So I use my laptop and I set it up and
Yeah.
make it where I'm writing. There's things you just learn with when you do it yourself. So yeah, man, there's always something new. Well, I
I
did I
find
did
that, were you an avid reader before you went down this avenue?
an avid
A reader?
reader.
Like, did you read a lot? Like just
Uh,
books and news?
I would read as what I need to learn. Like I'm one of those guys that if I'm interested in something, I'm going to read it and learn how to do it.
Okay.
So I don't really read for the sake of just like I've never been a novel kind of
Right,
reader.
right. Okay.
Just not that kind of
Yeah.
guy.
No, well, because I know reading off a teleprompter and reading in that fashion and trying to make it your own, that's what I sometimes struggle with is because I can sit here and talk shit all day and rattle off whatever, be funny, do this, I can do any of that. But when you
Mm,
start doing other people's words and you're reading other people's words, that really puts a twist on it that people don't understand that, because a
really?
lot of the stuff that you see, a lot of the stuff that you read to audition for, that's not how you would say it. Like I wouldn't speak that way. Um,
Yeah, you
but
get
the
a lot
real
of
question is, do you do everything in that accent? Or do you have a way, can you speak without the accent?
Yeah, I can clean it up a little bit, but just us talking, this is me, this is how I talk. If you watch some of my footage, that's on my pages, you'll see where I do tone it down. But, I'm just a hillbilly at heart. It's never going away,
Have
So
to get the training to do that?
no, I just practice. I'll just listen to XM radio and I'll find some DJs or whatever, and I just start trying to sound like them as much as possible to try to clean up my accent. But like I say, it's still here. I,
Yeah.
I deal with it. It is a problem in the industry because a lot of things that I get casted or auditions for, they're looking for somebody with no accent. You know,
Right.
so when it does come up, they want somebody with a southern accent. I usually see those types of auditions, and it's whatever, man. I can clean it up, but I'm never going to be the guy that's going to be doing Shakespeare anytime soon. That's for sure.
Who would want to anyway? Just the
Hear
elements
ye,
alone.
hear ye.
So the acting and whatnot is kind of a side hustle for you because your primary gig is construction waterproofing, right?
That's right. Yeah, I have my own company. My family, we run it together. My son works for me. My wife, we just being self-employed. I've been this way for a long time, just working for myself. I've had a real job at one point in my life, but I don't make the best employee.
Uh-huh.
I just like to create my own, and I feel more secure that way instead of having to depend on somebody else.
For
So
sure.
yeah, acting is very similar in the same way. It is a business too. So it's like having two businesses. Just one business, I'm really selling myself more so. But even in my own company, I still am selling myself and the company all the time, every day.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and you're doing it. So what drew you to basement waterproof or waterproofing? I shouldn't say basement because where you live, they don't necessarily have basements.
yeah, they do here in Atlanta. A lot of basements.
Oh, they
When you
do.
get so far south, that's when they stop. When you get down around like the Florida state line, It's no more basements. Everybody's on a slab.
Okay. Well, what drew you to waterproofing? Like, because that's not like here. It's mandatory. I'm in Minnesota, and it's part
Oh,
of the building code. You have to waterproof. There's no two bits
yeah.
about it. There's actually a waterproofing inspection that they'll come out and look to make sure you did it correctly. But where you're at, they don't have that.
Well, that's the beauty about Georgia. Waterproofing for new homes and construction is very, it's a joke. They don't really, like in Minnesota, there's nobody really inspecting that. They don't really waterproof. They just they do what's called damp proofing here, which is really just spray some, some tar on the wall and just to try to make it somewhat water resistant. And over time, that usually fails, or there's cracks that evolve, or there's old concrete block foundations. Most of the homes that we work on are going to be concrete block foundations, and it rains all the time in Georgia. So when you have the basements, bad waterproofing jobs in concrete block, that's just a recipe for needing waterproofing on your house.
Well,
So
and I know I've run into it a bunch of times, but so are you doing drain tile and sump pump and the whole bit, or are you just doing the exterior of the block surface to try and keep the water out, or are you putting in like a mitigation type system where if the water would get to this point, with mine, there's drain tile all around the edge of the basement, and then it all dumps into a sump and then pumps out, far away from the house. And like that, like I said, that's almost standard here. I don't know that. What's so different in Georgia that they don't make that mandatory? You know what I mean? Like, do you have different soil there that is not conducive to as much water flow? I don't know.
well, the types to answer your question, the types of repairs that we do all types. We excavate, we'll waterproof from the outside if it makes sense, or we'll go in and do a perimeter drain system, drain tile around the inside perimeter to a sump pump. Yeah, I mean, there's all types. It just depends on the property
Yeah,
and what the conditions are that makes the most sense to mitigate the problem. We also do foundation repair as well, so it kind of goes hand in hand with what we do. But in Georgia, I'm not sure what's up with the building codes here for that kind of stuff. They just don't have a true waterproofing requirement, and I can't really tell you why. I think a lot of builders, they finish basements or they don't finish basements. Say they leave it unfinished, so they don't have to waterproof. Maybe I don't know the specifics on that.
yeah.
Um, it's a problem. I mean, I see a lot of it, and most of the homes that we're dealing with is older houses where crawl spaces are involved,
Ugh.
concrete block. Newer homes not so much, but I will see them occasionally. If it's
That's
a
hardcore. I mean, it's and I don't want to sound rude, but it's it's generally not a job that a good looking guy who does acting, you know what I mean? And it's such polar opposites that the concrete waterproofing sump pump. I mean, I own a lot of real estate, and that is like the ugliest job in the whole building trade, to come into a house and bust the floor out to put in class 5. You're trucking it up through oh my gosh, it's brutal. But I'm sure you're at a point where you're not doing it yourself. You got guys out there, right?
I'm not doing it anymore. I mean, I will, and I'll do it occasionally, but not every day. It's rough work. It's very, very, very labor intensive. Everything about it. And
For sure.
the only time it's not is when we're doing like new work on commercial buildings or something.
Yeah.
That's a lot easier always than residential. That's just a backbreaking nightmare,
You never know what you're going to run into when you get into a 1900s or 1800s built house and you're trying to go in there and put in drain tile. You don't know what's in there. I literally just put a house on the market. Or I sold a house, I don't know, 3 months ago or something. It's a house I had for a long time. And I decided I was going to add another bathroom in the basement. So I got all my permits and did all my stuff. And I was actually traveling, and my wife helps me out with the business. So she was over there, and they busted the floor out to put the plumbing in. And it was a 10-foot round circle, 7 feet deep, with just, the 3-4 inches of concrete, an old cistern or something that they just laid concrete over the top. And, so then you're faced with, well, shoot, what do I do with this? I can't, you got to fill it. There's so many mysteries underneath concrete that, I get a charge out of it when I go to look at houses to buy or renovate or whatever I'm going to do with them. And you walk around in the basement floor and you can hear the different sounds of like, there's a huge pocket right here where there's nothing underneath me. And you just don't know what you're going to find. So you start busting it up to put in drain tile, and holy snap, there's Pandora's box under there. Pretty soon
Yeah,
you're doing the whole thing over again.
that's right. Yeah, man. I've seen some crazy stuff. I mean, you never know, especially when we're doing excavations, like an outside dig around a foundation or something like that. We think we know what we're going to encounter, but there's been times you'll find an old stump that you didn't know was there. Maybe granite, you hit a rock vein and you
Yeah.
can't dig it. There's a lot of things that can change that scope of work quickly.
Well, plus
Uh,
there's a lot of shit that's buried because in those olden days when they did the houses, they just threw all the junk in the yard and covered it up. You'll find an old pile of whatever. It's bad, But yeah, it's got to be interesting. But man, that is serious labor right there. I used to have a crew that did those for me, and I just no way, too much, too
I've
much.
been in construction my whole life, man. Ever since I was a little kid. I used to started out, with working for a framing crew when I was about 14. And I started out as cleaning out houses ever for a builder. I'd clean up the job sites, blow up paint cans. That's what I would like to do. I start a fire and throw all the trash in and explode stuff just for fun.
Yeah,
And then I'd sweep out the houses. And then I started toting lumber. I enjoyed construction as a child. That's just what I was into. And then as I got older, I started getting bigger jobs, working on commercial work. And then I blossomed into, I just came up the ranks. I wound up becoming what's called a senior field engineer, which is a guy who does all the layout. I never went to college, but I had guys that had tech degrees that worked for me. And I built several multi-family, 50-story high rises.
wow.
When I used to have a real job, that's what I mean. I worked for heavy general contractors. I've done several buildings here in Atlanta, and that was just before the economy tanked back in '07, '08, around that
Yeah,
time frame. And that's when I had a chance to get out of it, and I went into a franchise. It's a restoration franchise, and I had a partner, and we started doing water damage mitigation, fire, smoke damage, stuff
hell
like that, like ServPro, those guys. Um, it was called Paul Davis, which is a similar franchise like ServPro.
yeah,
That taught me how to be a business owner because it was hard to walk away from a career where I was making 80,000 a year, company truck. I mean, I had a good job.
yeah,
The next step was going to be superintendent or whatever, and I just didn't. I felt like I kind of topped out. I was like, well, this kind of sucks. This is not what I really expected, and I didn't like it. I didn't, like I said, didn't make the best employee, but I was really good at what I did.
yeah.
And back to reading books, I used to go to Barnes and Noble when I was young, when I wanted to learn how to become an engineer. And I used to sit at home and read books, and train and learn how to do this stuff. And then I worked alongside another engineer for a long time. And I just picked up on it really quickly, and I became very efficient. And I became known as the high-rise engineer. Everybody knew who I was. Uh,
Nice.
yeah, I toot my own horn here, but I had several job offers all the time from Turner, other big contractors, to go travel and do other jobs. But I stayed here in Atlanta most of the time. And when the economy tanked, I was miserable where I was at, and I had a chance to get out of it, and I walked away. And it was a struggle in the franchise because I had a bad territory, but it taught me how to be a businessman. And then from there, that's how I discovered this waterproofing thing. You don't do that in that type of work. That's insurance
Yeah.
claim stuff. Them guys don't want to do what I do. They want to just set up some dehumidifiers and fans and charge $5,000 and walk away.
I, I gotta tell you, I got a brand new sponsor. I literally just recorded the commercial for a restoration company.
Oh yeah.
I'm not even kidding. Like I was gonna put it in this episode, and now I'm like, maybe I should wait. Maybe I should wait.
Hey, guys, don't give it. They work hard. I mean,
Yeah. Oh, no, it's an amazing business, but it takes a certain it's a different mentality because you have to deal with the insurance companies. I mean, I actually just had a huge claim on a project I was doing, and they handled the whole thing.
The build backs and things like that, there's no money in it. The restoration, side of it, building back, remodeling, it's very risky. The margins are low. But when you get into like the water damage, where you're setting up drying equipment, those margins are good. I mean, those are good, and I know firsthand what it's like. So I know what them guys go through. And you can do very well. Matter of fact, my partner that I had at the time, he had another location, and he had a huge area south of Atlanta. I mean, he was turning over $10 million a year. I mean, so they were killing it. We couldn't. We were out in the country bumpkin area where there was just nothing, and trying to make it. And I did, but just barely. I mean, we
Yeah.
were scraping by. I walked away from it, gave it all back to my partner. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Didn't take it from it.
Well, and
But,
it's a tough business because you got to juggle a lot of, you're being a general contractor and kind of a liaison between the homeowner and the insurance agency, and
mhm,
it's not for everybody. I used to own an insurance agency, so I know the value of a good restoration company because they totally,
mhm,
they could ease a problem like a drop of a hat. But
yeah,
if you're having trouble making those connections and getting, if you're in an area where there's just not a lot of storms or water damage, then it's a difficult business because it's really,
yeah.
tragedy dependent, or crisis dependent. And if you're not in an area where that's up, then it's not the right racket.
Yeah, and at the time, a lot of guys started trying to get into that industry because the economy had tanked, and they were trying to figure out ways to have to work. So a lot of people started trying to get into this whole restoration thing because it's insurance money. A customer's not having to pay to their pocket.
Right.
So when I got out of it, I stayed in it for about 5 years, and I started Morris Environmental, which is what we are today.
Hmm.
Now I take pride in. I specialize in work that's not covered by insurance. Because everybody, I'll see HVAC guys, plumbers, roto rooter for God's sake, that does water, fire, mold. It's just like ridiculous. Everybody does it now.
Yeah.
Uh, my stuff that we do is still, you got to have. I mean, it's my stuff is very real estate transaction dependent. But when you got water coming in your basement, I mean, it's a necessity to get it fixed. It's not an aesthetic thing. You need
Yeah.
it done, but the insurance doesn't cover it. So my competition is a lot more expensive than us because I'm able to keep. I'm still small, but we're doing well. But our sales are really driven by word of mouth and just delivering on excellent customer service.
Well, and I find that's a big factor in, I do a ton of real estate and construction. We flip a lot of houses and blah, blah,
Hmm.
blah, blah, blah. But I think that's a huge key to your industry is having the word of mouth and the positive feedback from people. Because when you're dealing with something like what you are with water in the basement or trying to keep water out of the basement, and what, you got a deer in your house? That's a black-tailed deer right there.
It's my pet deer.
You are living.
Actually, we adopted a greyhound. He was a former race dog, and poor guy. I mean, I just to tell everybody he didn't make the cut. He wasn't fast enough. That's why he had to retire early, But he's a great dog, man. He's very quiet. If you anybody out there just listening, if you're thinking about getting a dog, check out a greyhound. They never bark. They don't smell. They're just amazing dogs, man. They're great.
They look like a deer when they're in the back of the camera shot.
They look like you ever see them at Christmas time? We put the little antlers on them, and it looks just like a little deer.
They, but no, I was saying that they, when you get to a point where people are dealing with water in their basement or they're trying to dry their basement, word of mouth and that feedback from prior customers is so key because I know for myself, I hate more than anything just randomly calling and finding Joe Schmo to come out and do something because, like anything in the construction industry, there's a lot of people out there that aren't up to snuff. They're not legit. They're just fly by night, and it's tough. So if you build a reputation as being the guy, and being small enough to handle the big jobs, yet keep it, personal enough to where they feel like they're getting the attention they deserve. That's huge, man. That's really a big factor in the construction world.
It is. It's a tough line to walk because we're growing, but it's when you start to grow, you're going to see that customer service is going to start to deteriorate just a little bit because, most of my customers are dealing with me. So
Yeah,
if I deal with somebody else, nobody cares about this more than I do, So
exactly.
it's, but it's part of business. That's how it is, So we're that's where we're at. We're growing right now, and it's been tough. I'm actually trying to find employees, and right now it's almost impossible. I mean, I can't get. I'm like, you know, what the world? I don't know what to say. I don't know. It seems nobody wants to work, or everybody's
And,
working.
it's hard enough to find people to work, but to do the work that you have, come on,
Yeah,
that's a rare breed right there.
yeah, yeah. It is tough, man. It's rough. It takes the right person, and I've gone through several, but the guys I have that work with me steady, I've known them. I mean, one of them's my son, So the other ones I've known since they were little. They've grown up with my son, So they're kind of like we're all like a little family here.
Sure.
I bring in somebody new that I don't know. I have to really watch them and then wait and see if they're going to work out. You can usually tell pretty quickly if they're going to make it.
Yeah, and that's been some of the problem with some of my companies and growth. It's like you just can't depend on anyone to care about your company as much as you do. I own an ice cream store. I've got the cameras here so I can watch the kids do whatever. And we'll be like 9 o'clock and it's closing and people show up and they're like, oh, it's 9 o'clock. We're closing. I'm like, we don't ever turn anyone away. I mean, if I'm here and I'll scoop it myself, like, but that's just because it's mine, and with my other businesses, it's like people don't care about quality and going through the work to get it done right the
That's
way
right.
that you do because it's your name, it's your company, where they're just like, I don't care, let him figure it out. And it really sucks because in this day and age with construction and so many people being self-employed, there's a lot of competition out there. So if you do find somebody who isn't related to you and becomes a great employee and does really well, you got to pay them so much money or they'll be like, screw it, I'll just go open my own shop,
Yeah.
and take all these customers with me. And it happens all the time, and it's very frustrating because trying to find any kind of skilled labor right now, no way, it's just not out there. Kids don't want to work anymore. They
That's
don't
what's,
have to. It's sad.
yeah,
But
it's a dying breed, man. It's hard to find guys that want to do construction in general,
yeah,
that are not from Mexico, that are new here. That's just the facts. Uh, Finding guys that are from here, a lot of young people, they just don't have the interest right now. I think it will come back around the next generation. So many young people that are older now were taught they have to go to college. You got to go to college, to do anything, and you don't. I mean, that's just the facts. I mean, you want to be successful in this country, you just need to learn how to get out and sell something and sell
yeah.
a service or a product and be good at it.
Well, not be afraid to get your hands dirty,
Yeah,
get to work.
exactly. And that's where the blue collar industry comes in. A lot of guys are scared to go into that. And I think, what's it, Mike Rowe, he's preaching that all the time, the guy who did Dirty Jobs.
Yeah.
I love that dude, man, because he's so right. There's so much opportunity out there, and these trades are never going away.
No.
But the more scarce it becomes to get people to fill them, the more expensive it's going to be. Because supply and demand. If nobody's doing it, I mean, the rates
Now I got to think there aren't a lot of labor coming over the border anymore because we got that shut down due to the pandemic.
go.
So if they aren't here, they're not getting here. And I've got a few Mexican dudes that work for me, and call it whatever you want. These guys work like
Oh, great work.
100 degrees out. They got long sleeves and pants on, and they're not asking for a water break every 10 minutes. So it's different because the mentality of this younger generation, they don't want to do the labor jobs. My 29-year-old son does heating and air. He bends tin all day. He
Okay.
loves it. He makes solid money. It's a good job, but
It's a great job.
people don't want to do it. They don't want to work with their hands. They don't want to make anything. And I think that's where we're going to take a serious downward turn as a society in the US is nobody wants to work. Everybody wants everything for free and they want it now.
Yeah, and that's a bunch of BS. You can't get anywhere like that. But like your son, the heating and air thing, I mean, if he's working for a company, that's okay. But if he ever started to do his own thing, I mean, man, yeah, especially, well, even up there, you got to have heat and you got to have AC in the summer.
Oh yeah.
Without an AC, man, that's like life and death situation. I mean, you've got to have
Yeah.
AC.
Those guys are stacked. Like I've had to recharge 3 AC units in the last month. And luckily I give the guy enough business where I can move up the priority list. But those guys are busy. But the problem is that so you get good enough to go on your own and you build a clientele. Now you got to do the opposite. You got to find people to work for you. And
Yeah.
so it's kind of you're damned if you do and damned if you don't, because going out on a limb and putting yourself out there is great because there is an upside, but there's definitely a downside too, which you're finding right now. You can't find people to work.
Yeah, and it's tough because a lot of the guys that I do find, this is what typically happens. I'll find guys that are out of jail. They don't have their license because they got drug DUI problems or they didn't pay their child support. There's always a story.
Yeah.
And it's fine. I don't judge I don't go by that. I go by what my gut feeling is when I meet the person. And then I go from there and then I watch them and see what happens. But unfortunately, a lot of these guys that are doing laborious work is because they don't really want to. They just are kind of like, that's kind of where they wound up, and
They don't have a lot of other options.
Right. Their options are limited and it's kind of sad, but my point is that it's not like this is the gutter, this is not, what we do is rough, don't get me wrong, but I used to pour concrete with some guys when I was 18. I used to work. I've never worked so hard in my life, man. Me and one guy did like a whole subdivision by ourselves.
Yeah.
All ways, sidewalks and slabs. It was ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
It made me a good concrete. I know a lot about concrete. I can tell you all about, what, your PSI, your slump test, calcium. What are we doing? It just depends on what kind of mix we want.
Yeah.
But I don't want to do concrete because I know, how rough it was. But these guys that get in these trades, nowadays they're scared, but the ones that are in it are kind of because they almost have to be.
Yeah.
And it makes it tough, man. I just wish a generation would come up that wants to create something, to build something, because there's something to that. When you sit back and look at what you've done with your hands, it's a pride thing. I feel it every time I do something, and I know my guys do too. Even though we're doing waterproofing,
Yeah,
problems, and we did it with our hands, so it's kind of cool.
well, and it's a dying breed, man. I don't envy your position. I know I've set, I obviously have people that work for me for the ice cream store, but all my other businesses it's either me or my wife, and I don't like relying on anybody for because it's just they don't show up. And like you're saying, you get these people that are forced to do this work because of their past or whatever their situation is.
Yeah.
The most reliable people generally. Sometimes they turn around and they do the right thing, but you get somebody who's actually willing to do labor on a regular basis, man. They're not always going to be reliable.
That's right.
On occasion you'll find them, but anyway, you got to hard out, man. You got to get going. So tell the people if they're in the Atlanta area and they want to do some fun waterproofing work, very light and easy to do. How do people find you? Or if they want waterproofing, what's your best way to connect?
Well, the best way for my business is look up my company. It's called Morris Enviro. That's what we're called. It's morrisenviro.com. We're actually Morris Environmental Incorporated, but we had to shorten it up because nobody knows how to spell environmental,
Sure.
Problem. So we just made it Enviro. So go to my website. If somebody that's in Georgia needs a job and they think they want to give this a go, look me up because I am looking for some good men. And if you need our services, call us. We'll take care of it. And then as an actor,
what do you got going on that front? I see on your IMDb, you got a lot of stuff coming out, man. You got a lot of stuff in the works.
Yeah, it's tough. Like the COVID thing has really kind of put the brakes on that. So I haven't been pursuing anything. I've been focused on nothing but my business, and not really. My agent, what he does send me for auditions, I'll do them. Like the one I had this morning, I shot it. It was from my agent. But I used to actually actively pursue projects, and I've stopped doing that because my time is so limited right now. I've got way too much going on. But yeah, I do have some cool things coming up, and I've done some cool stuff in the past. Acting is a very tough business. Anybody wants to be an actor as a professional, you better have thick skin, and you better be prepared to get told no a million times to get one yes. And you got to better know that you want to do this, because it can really mess with you. And since I've been in this industry, I've known 2 people personally that have taken their own lives.
Oof.
Sad. Yeah, I know. I don't know what's up with that. I don't know if it's just the acting alone. I mean, I'm sure there's other problems involved, maybe some substance abuse that helps.
Yeah. Well, it's very stressful, and I can speak to it because I do a lot of auditions every day, and there's so much competition, especially right now with the COVID thing. Everybody has time, so everybody's auditioning, and they're like, those of us who are in the business prior to this debacle, you see a lot of it going to people who, home studios, and we'll give this a try because we got nothing else going on. So everybody needs to go back to work. Go back to your real jobs.
Yeah, I know it's, but the mentality I have towards my acting is I take it serious, but I don't really give a damn either. It's like, what? I don't have to have this job, but if I get it, that's great. I will deliver. I'll do my best.
Yeah.
But you got to have that mentality. There's a thing that, there's a saying, it's called audition amnesia. It's do it and forget about it. Don't think about it. If you get a call back, that's great. But just remember, there's probably 10, 20 other people that's got a call back too, out of the 300 that had the audition in the first place. Getting a yes is tough, especially when it's a good paying gig.
Yeah.
But if you're getting called in for auditions, hey, that's the win. I mean, thousands of people wish they were getting auditions. I've been lucky and blessed to get plenty of auditions when I was trying, and not just from my agency, but actually on my own too. And I stayed covered up with auditioning, and I've had too many projects going at once before. I mean, so I'm not. I was selling myself, and just trying to, just like I do in my company, just trying to grow and trying to get work.
Which picture or TV show has been the most fun, and like that you've enjoyed the most? I'm looking at 4 years of stuff here, man. This is pretty impressive for a guy who says, I'll get to it. It's not, I don't give a shit if I get it or not. It looks like you're getting it. That's why you're winning.
Well, I lose a lot. I don't talk about that either. I mean, I've lost a lot, and I've got some stories that are like, dang, man, really? Because I had a big call back for Undercover Brother 2 with the Lionsgate Entertainment. I met with the director and the producer. Come down to me and one other guy. A big scene with the main dude. It was I was a redneck bartender, getting a fight with him and all that. And I got the call back, and they wound up going with the other guy. My wife thinks it's because I wasn't, I'm not ugly enough, sadly, but they loved me enough to call me in for a callback. So they really loved what I did.
Yeah.
Could have been, that would have changed things dramatically. It wasn't no small scene. It was very big.
Yeah.
And this other thing I'll tell you about, you asked about what was my favorite.
Yeah.
So far, there's 2, but I'll tell you one. There was a competition for Sony PlayStation Network, and it was an up-and-coming young directors competition. And there was this local girl that had created a series called Two Roads. I believe that's what it was called. And anyways, I auditioned, had a local casting director send me an audition for this it's called a golf cart salesman. It's just a day player role in the pilot episode that we shot. And I was like the comedy break. I'm selling this guy a golf cart, but you don't know I'm selling him a golf cart until the very end. So I'm the salesman that's like, really, I'm throwing out all the tricks of, all these different tactics to try to get this guy to say, yeah, okay. So I got the part, and I went in, I did it. And, I was in a room full of 50 plus people inside of an actual golf cart place. And, they were just dying laughing because I was doing it. They were over the top. There's some footage of me out there somewhere doing this. And anyways, they loved it so much. The producer called me back and wanted me they were going to write me in as a main character. I was going to be married to one of the girls. I'm like, well, that's awesome,
Yeah.
And she won the competition. So the deal was supposed to be a distribution deal for Sony PlayStation Network. So we were going to shoot a whole season that was going to be on a streaming network. Well, that's like the best case scenario for an up and coming actor. I mean, they liked me enough to make me a series regular, and it just got picked up by Sony. Well, that sounded all good, right? But then months went by and crickets. Sony PlayStation Network pretty much scrapped their whole network, and it just went down the toilet, man. Nobody did anything. So history goes so up and down. You just don't know.
Yeah, well, you get invested in these things, and you're like, when you're that far down the road, you're like, this is happening, and it's like,
yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh crap, it's not happening. Like so close. It happens all the time. It's really not for the faint of heart, man. The business is very difficult, and I think the people that are you presume are doing really well at it are just hiding it better than everyone else, because everybody's going through the same thing. It's crazy.
It's a tough racket. Even your big talent that you would know if you started naming names, them guys, yeah, they get paid well when they work, but they're also doing other stuff. They're not just acting. They're maybe creating content, or they're producing with stuff. They're doing more than just being just an actor. Because being just an actor, I mean, it's so tough to make it. And
what are they? Maybe on a big number, maybe 100 in the world that are like crushing it.
Maybe, yeah. Your A-list actor list is very short.
Yeah.
Out of everybody that's part of the union, the Screen Actors Guild, SAG union, I think they say like 3% or not even that, or is actually making like all the money, So most people are like me. They do it because they like it. It's a craft. It never stops. You just train to be better at it. And then, maybe one day you get picked up, get paid well. I mean, my goal in acting is just to maybe one day get cast and be like a supporting actor with Matthew McConaughey or something, man. And like a couple of Texas guys at Rob Banks or something. That'd make my acting career. That's all I want. It's before he kicks the bucket, something like that would be cool.
I think we have the same mentality with it. I do the same thing with the voice acting, where I'm like, someday, I'm not, but thankfully I have these other businesses that cover me now. If I had to live on it, I definitely wouldn't be this fat. I would be really concerned about my meal plan, but someday, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm having a hell of a fun time messing around with it. And
yeah, man,
it just, and I'm a firm believer, and I actually have trained with some of the best in the industry. And I'm a firm believer in it's being at the right place at the right time. You come across the right guy, you're buying gas at the Dixie stop, and Matthew McConaughey's in there, and all of a sudden, boom, you're playing golf, and then you're in a picture. You know what I mean? It's being in the right place at the right time, and having somewhat of a resume, which you've covered. I hate to harp on it, but so does any of this, and you don't have to get too in depth, but does any of this stuff pay any real money? Like anything real?
Decent. I mean, it's nothing over the top. I mean, you're making maybe commercial work is good. I'll say that pays good. That can pay on a low end, a few $100 for a half a day to a couple thousand, that movies and TV shows, a lot of that stuff doesn't pay hardly anything, maybe $100, $125 a day.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. It's definitely not about the money. And like you just said, if I was like trying to do this for a living, man, I don't know, man. I'd have to, hopefully my wife makes a lot of money, because there's no way I could,
right.
You're not really going to turn over a lot of gold doing this, until that incident happens. And it's funny you said that about, getting started, because all the stars align at the right time. Most guys that you hear about, how they made it and how they got started, that's exactly what happened. A unique set of events occurred to get them that one part in that big show that was a hit, or whatever, that set their career in motion.
Yeah, all you got to do is run across Adam Sandler. He'll put you in something.
I'd love to be his friend.
Yeah. Although I don't know if I want to be in those movies, so I'd be like, you know what, I'm going to pass. I'm good.
Hey man,
Other
me, Sandler and David Spade, we'll sit around. I'll be that guy that's always cross-eyed, you know, that one dude. That's always.
whatever it takes, man. Put me in, coach. Hey, man, we got to get you going. So everybody should check Eric out. His IMDb is Eric James Morris.
Yes.
And check out the morrisenviro.com for some waterproofing, or if you're looking for a job in the Georgia area, he's got all kinds of stuff going on, all kinds of options for you. Man, we can't thank you enough for the time. We're gonna have to check in on you from time to time and see how things are progressing. Once you land that McConaughey deal and you're like, hey, I know this overweight DJ in Minneapolis who would love to be in the background of something.
All right. Well, definitely, dude. Man, hey, it's been a pleasure talking with you. And yeah, definitely love to talk with you again.
For sure. We'll check in on you down the road and see if our paths can cross and make some more podcasting magic happen. So everyone, we thank Eric for the time, and sir, we'll check in with you down the road.
All right. Thank you.
Take care, man.
Take care.
We stop that one and stop